where we will hear the candidates for St. Peter Mayor and City Council. The League of Women Voters of St. Peter is hosting this forum together with our co-sponsors, the St. Peter Herald and the St. Peter Chamber of Commerce. My name is Diane Norland, and I will be the moderator tonight. My able assistant is Lynn Solo. Her job is to keep me on track, because with 10 candidates, I could get confused. Cindy Olson and Victoria Steinhaus will time for us. They are right down here. They have a 15-second left on your time sign and also a stop sign. And so we expect that speech will stop when the sign is there. The League of Women Voters is a local, state, and national nonpartisan grassroots 501c3 organization that promotes the active, informed involvement of citizens in government. The League neither supports nor opposes political parties or individual candidates in any election. This forum is being recorded and will be aired at St. Peter Public Access TV and will also be available on the St. Peter YouTube channel. All offices on the St. Peter ballot this year are contested positions, so you will need to pay close attention. I will introduce the candidates shortly, but first we have some housekeeping to take care of. If you have a question for the candidates, please raise your hand and an usher, where are they? Check them out, they're in the back there. An usher will collect questions or will bring you a 3x5 card and pencil. So they are ready to help you. We have a lot of candidates tonight and have already received a number of questions prior to tonight, but I will try to get in all of the questions. All questions previously submitted and asked here tonight have been reviewed by the League. Questions submitted tonight will be reviewed by League member Carolyn Dobler and Chamber Director Ed Lee. We will not ask questions that are illegible, are on personal matters unrelated to the elective position, unclear, hostile, or that are submitted for the purpose of making a statement rather than gaining information. Questions on one issue or similar issues may be consolidated or rephrased. Each candidate will be asked to answer each question. All questions become the property of the League of Women Voters. Candidates will be allotted 1 minute for opening statements and 1 minute for closing statements. You may have 1 minute to answer each question in a rotating order within your ward, and we have a whole list worked out. We will alternate wards and work our mayoral candidates into the mix. Our timekeepers will track the time, holding up a yellow sign when 15 seconds remain and a stop sign when time is up. Candidates, please check that you can see them easily. Okay. Now I'd like to introduce our candidates. Seated in the center, running for mayor are Ed Johnson. Why don't you raise your hand? Thank you. Shannon Noel, Chuck Zeman. Seated to our audience's left are Ward 1 candidates. Residents of Ward 1 will elect 2 of the following candidates to a 4-year term. For Ward 1, Remo Alexandri, Daryl Perez, Daryl Pettis, Ben Renf. Ward 2 candidates are seated on our audience's right. Ward 2 voters will elect one of the following candidates. For Ward 2, David Mcguire, Joellen Peters, Dustin Charstrom. Thank you. For opening statements, we will start with the mayor candidates, then go to Ward 1, then to Ward 2. So we will begin. Opening statements, and remember, 1 minute. We will begin with Ed Johnson.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ed Johnson. I'm a candidate for the mayor of St. Peter. First, I'd like to thank you for coming tonight and the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. I grew up on a small farm just outside of St. Peter. I've lived in town for the last 40 years. I served on the city council the past 3.5 or so, and I've been a volunteer firefighter for 16 years. I have managed the Redmond Club for 34 years. I am running for mayor because I want to continue to serve you and this community in a greater capacity as a council member. As a council member, I had the opportunity to serve on the Economic Development Authority, the Hospital Commission, and the Building Committee for the new fire station. In these roles, I've also learned a lot about the inner works of the city. Glasses are fogging up here a little bit. I bring a common sense approach to leadership that puts our community first, and I'm willing to listen to all ideas.
The red sign.
Sorry.
We are serious about the 1 minute. Okay, thank you. Shannon Noel.
Thank you. To the League of Women Voters, the Chamber, and the Herald for hosting this event, I thank you, and to all of you for coming out tonight. My name is Shannon Noel. I've served as a city council member for the last 2 years, and I'm ready to serve as your next mayor. I believe my skills and passions align with the role of mayor and the needs of our town. Through my professional and volunteer positions, I've learned to set clear priorities and make sure budget and strategic initiatives reflect those priorities. I value diversity of thought and have experience effectively communicating across differences. I will seek to be a careful and thoughtful steward of tax dollars and be a strong voice for progress on the council. I pledge to support affordable housing options, to build on the strength of our vibrant diversity in St. Peter, and to seek a sustainable and green future for all of our residents. Thank you.
Next, Chuck Zeman.
Good evening. My name is Chuck Zeman. I too am running for mayor. I have served on the city council as a council member for 4 years, and for the last 6 years I've served as mayor. My wife Woody is a St. Peter native, recently retired as an English as a second language teacher in the Sibley East schools. I have lived in St. Peter for 45 years. I was born and raised on a dairy farm in McLeod County, about 10 miles south of Hutchinson. I spent my freshman year at Gustavus, and I transferred and graduated from the University of Minnesota with a bachelor's of science degree in business administration. I too have recently retired from being a senior appraiser at the Nicollet County Assessor's Office. I currently have one full-time job outside of the home, and that job is being the mayor of St. Peter. I am here tonight to ask for your continued support. Thank you.
Now we will move on to the candidates from Ward 1. Remo Alexandri.
Thank you. My name is Remo Alexandri. I'm an immigrant from the Islamic Republic of Iran. I, along with my family, have lived across the country from Los Angeles to Boston, and since 2013 we have lived here. We love this town. My 10-year-old daughter really loved this town. The reason I'm running is to fulfill the promise to the immigrants when we raise our hand and pledge allegiance to the United States of America when we become a citizen. So this is a fulfillment of my journey as an immigrant, but also I think I have skills that I can bring to the table to help our community and help our community to develop and have an eye for the future. And I think we can bring more highly paid professionals to our town in the future and expand the tax base that way.
Next from Ward 1 is Roger Perez.
Hi, my name is Roger Perez. Thank you for putting on the event. I have served on City Council 5 years previous of the 12 years I've lived in St. Peter. I'm running again because I just believe that we have to have good stewards of tax dollars and rates for our city. Everything that we take, and I believe the government takes it because we don't pay it in voluntarily, but everything we take, we have to make sure that we are using responsibly and using properly and smart. So those are the main reasons that I run. I appreciate it if I could earn your vote, and thanks again.
Next, Daryl from Ward 1 is Daryl Pettis.
Once again, thank you for coming tonight. It's great to see everybody here. Great to have a nice turnout. I am Daryl Pettis. I'm running for City Council. I have been a resident of St. Peter since 2002, coming up on just about 20 years here. My background is I'm a civil engineer, graduate of South Dakota State University. I have worked for state and local government for the past 30 years and recently retired as a county administrator from Le Sueur County. I have served on the St. Peter Fire Department for 17 years, holding the position of Captain 1, and also holding the position of the Relief Association Treasurer. Family and I have been very involved in St. Peter, and now that I have retired from my administrator role and moved on into the consulting engineering role, I was looking at getting back into government and actually serving on the other side of the table instead of being a bureaucrat or on the working side, being on the elected side. So thank you for coming tonight, and I look forward to this discussion.
And Ward 1, the fourth candidate is Ben Renf.
First off, I want to thank all the organizers of this event. A little bit about myself. I moved here in 2017 for work. We chose St. Peter because of its small town feel and its diversity. I want to serve the people who call St. Peter their home, promote St. Peter as the best town to live, work, and do business. I'm currently on the Planning and Zoning Commission. Before we moved to St. Peter, I was a Minnesota Pro Board certified firefighter with the city of Wabasha, where I was training officer for the 2 previous years before we moved. In my 20 years of business experience, I have never turned down a challenge to create, improve, or cooperate with others to reach the goals at hand. And I will do the same for the residents of St. Peter. Thank you.
Next, we will move on to Ward 2, David Mcguire.
Thank you. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the Chamber of Commerce and all those involved in putting this together again. I am David Mcguire, and I'm running for City Council for Ward 2, and most of you know me already, but I'll remind you all that I am a lifelong resident of St. Peter. I love our community and its rich history and our community's small town values, and I'm anxious to be of service to our community. I graduated from St. Peter High School in 1990, and I've always been interested in our rich history. Thank you.
Next from Ward 2 is Jo Ellen Peters.
Good evening. I want to thank the League, the Herald, and the Chamber for hosting this event tonight. My name is Jo Ellen Peters, and I'm running for City Council in Ward 2. I worked for Nicollet County Emergency Management 9 years before we ever moved to Minnesota, or to St. Peter. After moving to St. Peter, I worked for North Star Aviation as a flight instructor. I was the chief flight instructor responsible for 40 flight instructors at one point. I am a longtime member, 30 years, of the Air Force Auxiliary Civil Air Patrol, and I hold the grade of Lieutenant Colonel. And during that, I had many positions. I was the commander for several years. I was a standardization evaluation officer of the whole Minnesota pilot crew, which was 133 pilots. Okay.
And in Ward 2, Dustin Charstrom.
All right, my name is Dustin Charstrom. I'm a local social studies teacher for the St. Peter Public School District. My family and I moved to St. Peter 8 years ago, like many people, because we saw what St. Peter offered for families. And like many people, it took us years to find a house in St. Peter. So we understand the struggles facing people who want to move to this community. I would like to take my experience in the classroom as a teacher of government and history at the middle school, high school, and college level and use it to represent everyone in St. Peter.
Thank you. Thank you to all of the candidates for your opening remarks. One little hint, please, in the audience, no talking among yourselves. It's amazing how well you can hear up here. Okay, we will now go to question 1. And we will be starting with Ward 2. Question number 1. Our ballots this November includes a ballot question which asks, shall the city of St. Peter, Minnesota be authorized to finance the construction of a new fire station in the city by imposing a sales and use tax of 0.5%? Do you support this city sales tax? Yes or no, and why? And we will start with Ward 2, Jo Ellen Peters.
I do support the tax for the fire department, for the fire station. It is a vital importance to our community that we have a viable fire department. And I think that where they are now has become a constraint. So it is well within the venue or the purview of necessary building for that fire department.
Ward 2, second candidate, Dustin Charstrom.
So I as well do support the sales tax for the fire station. The bottom line is we needed this, and we've needed it for a long time. So when you look at the city and our growth, one way or another, we're going to be paying for this fire station. If we do not get this funding through the sales tax, more of a tax burden is going to fall on every individual who pays property taxes in St. Peter. This is a more equitable way to finance the fire station without putting it solely on the homeowners within the community.
Next, we will move to Ward 1, Roger Prados. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
David Mcguire, please.
Yes.
Forgive me.
Yes, I too support the sales tax for the new fire station. I think the old fire station has served its purpose, and we're very much in need of a brand new fire station, and I agree with having the sales tax that we need to pay for it. Yes.
Thank you. Now we move on to the representatives from Ward 1. Roger Pettis.
One of the things that I know and the mayoral candidates know is the need for the fire station has been vetted years ago. It's gonna happen. If we don't have a sales tax, then, as Mr. Charstrom said, it will fall on property taxes. So if we vote no to the sales tax, then we pay more in property tax. The fire hall is gonna happen. That ball is already rolling. It's too far. So I definitely support a sales tax just to relieve some burden on property taxes.
Next, Daryl Pettis.
I have been serving on the fire station building committee for a number of years already. I've been intimately involved in the design of the building. It's definitely needed. It's definitely something I do support. The sales tax, unfortunately, the state doesn't come through with funding anymore. They used to have more LGA, local government aid. The legislature has pushed these decisions down to the local level and basically forced locals to have to raise taxes to do these types of things. I also do support the sales tax, yes. I also do echo the same response from most of the people up here. If it's not paid through with the sales tax, it would be a levy increase, which would be on the property tax. So yes, I do support the sales tax. I do support the construction of the fire station.
Next, Ben Renf.
I also agree with the sales and use tax of 0.5% to fund the new fire station. The fire station's not being built because they want a newer building. If you think about when this fire station was built, the equipment that they used was much smaller. Things have gotten bigger. And I'm pretty sure the thought that was put into this building for it to last for years and years and years to come. I agree with the other candidates that if we do not pass the sales tax, we will pay for it one way or another. It's a necessary evil, it's a need.
All right. Next, Remo Alexandri.
I completely support the 0.5% sales tax to fund our new fire hall. I had the pleasure of meeting with our fire department officer corps, and I not only support that 0.5% fire tax, but I also support additional funding for new equipment, and maybe if we could down the road buy a new ladder for the fire department. I believe strongly these are great investments in our community, and there's a good argument for that. Our home insurances could actually go down if we have a more and better equipped fire department. So all those things are taken into account when insurance rates are tabulated and calculated. And I also had the pleasure of meeting with our police department. Police department also needs certain fundings for safety and equipment that we should do. These are great investments. I don't think anyone would disagree. And I hope, I also promised, I'll stop here.
Thank you. Now we'll move to the mayors. Shannon Noel.
Well, I'm not going to surprise you by disagreeing with anybody else. I absolutely approve the sales tax. I think it is the new fire hall is a necessity. It's not a luxury. We need it. And the sales tax will help us spread that cost and not put it solely on the shoulders of property owners. And I think it's worth also pointing out that this change wouldn't put us out of alignment with local communities who also have sales tax, and so there's no disadvantage to our local businesses.
Thank you. Next, Chuck Zeman.
Yeah, my last line that I wrote for my closing comments, it says, please vote for the 0.5% sales tax for the needed fire hall. This sales tax increase will, on an average $20 taxable bill, will add 10 cents to your bill. The current fire hall was built in 1928 as a county garage. It has been used since 1958 as a fire hall. There are so many things that have changed, and there are so many other elements, carcinogens, that the firefighters need to deal with, and our current facility does not account for that. I appeared for 2 years before the House and Senate committee at the state in order to just to get to the point where we can vote for this. And this sales tax will cover not only our our annual payments on the loan, it will have some to exceed. Thank you.
And last, Ed Johnson.
Well, being on the fire department for the last 16 years, of course I know we need a new fire station. I do agree with the 0.5% sales tax. I was also with Chuck at a couple of the meetings to get the state to let us do this. I think everybody should pay their fair share instead of all the property owners, because we do need this station. We need areas to park the trucks. We need areas to clean up after fires, which we do not have now. So I do support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 2. Given the evolving demographics of our city, what efforts would you support that enables St. Peter to become a city that truly supports all people as neighbors? And we will start with Ward 1, Daryl Pettis.
Supports all people as neighbors. Okay. I believe I'll start with this building right here. I'll start with the school system. Even though the city council doesn't have a whole lot to do with the school system, it's very important that we have a strong school district and a strong school system, and make sure that that school system is adequately funded to provide services for all people, the community, both the young and the elderly. Coming from a county background, I've been a county administrator for years, I'm intimately aware of the difficulties that are faced by residents, both young and old, within our communities. I had the privilege of being in charge of the public health departments and the human services departments within the county, and also being the funder for the jail and the law enforcement facilities for the county. So support all demographics, provide services, provide good services, make it a place where they want to live, and provide opportunities for housing and homes. Thank you.
Next, Ward 1, Ben Renf.
The evolving demographic was one of the reasons we chose St. Peter to be our home. I think about this question and I get reminded of a conversation I had with a resident this weekend. He posed an issue that was affecting their community. I'm not a council member yet, but I took action. I contacted some folks to talk about halal funding, which is very, very, very difficult for a lot of banks to grasp. I think it's important that we think about equity when it comes to all of St. Peter, and we don't leave anybody behind. By doing this, we welcome more diversity into our community. Thank you.
Okay. Remo Alexandri.
I met with our Somali community here. I went to their center. I was well received. We've developed a good rapport. I have good friends. What I heard was they're looking for big houses. They're first-generation immigrants. All first-generation immigrants, successful immigrants like our hardworking Somali community usually end up living in multi-generational house with grandfathers and kids and growing up together and assimilating and contributing to the community. So our housing developments, they have interest, they have perfectly is attuned with the housing, the needs that we need for the city to move on to the future to attract more highly paid professionals who happen to be more diverse, bringing in more diversity. They also happen to get married and have more children. And they will go to the school system, which will snowball into more economic growth in the city. So this is my vision.
Next, Ward 1, next, Roger Prados.
On the previous years that I've served on council, diversity was always something we talked about. We were always constantly, and still, I would imagine they still do today, encourage a diverse population on our boards. It's difficult. You know, we advertise. I think we could maybe advertise within certain communities, such as Somali leadership. Maybe that could help a little bit better with getting some diversity. Advertise with maybe the school district by sending information home. You know, the question revolves around what the city can do. So, you know, I won't touch on the school because the school district has to run itself. Affordable housing, as Remo had said, is another option that we definitely need to keep pursuing, which we have. We know we have new subdivisions, and they were created for affordable housing. Cost of lumber and all that has really changed things. That's it. End of my time.
Thank you. Next, we will move on to the mayors and begin with Chuck Zeman.
First of all, Diane, could I have you repeat the question,
Certainly.
please? If this cuts into my time, I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
Given the evolving demographics of our city, what efforts would you support that enable St. Peter to become a city that truly supports all people as neighbors?
Thank you. One of the things that we do, we have the items of vital importance that we have with the city, and one of them is treating all people like neighbors. I've been at this for 10 years, and this has been a constant thing as far as including people. We have some things that we're working on now to get some more diversity groups and some other things going for inclusion. You know, in today's times, it seems like we sometimes assume that we aren't welcoming because of maybe police. Maybe somebody has a negative connotation with that. I want to say that we had recently rehired a new police chief, and 3 of the candidates we had were internal candidates with 81 years of experience, and none of them have ever had a complaint issued against them for 81 years of experience. Thank you.
Next, we will move on to Ed Johnson.
This is a very difficult subject. We do have a lot of diversity in St. Peter, and we will be getting a lot more. We are trying different ideas through the council to get these groups together so we can find out what they want or what they need. And the main thing is if we can get some of these groups together to find out what they need, maybe we can get some of them on the boards and so forth. But the main thing is everybody's just got to get along. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Next, Shannon Noel.
Thank you. From my observations on the council, I have seen our city staff do excellent work toward diversity, equity, and inclusion, but a lot of that work is sort of on an ad hoc basis. I think a great example that Ben alluded to was Sharia compliant loans. So we just granted some funds through the EDA for the store downtown. The name is eluding me. But we did that through a Sharia compliant loan type of process. Well, that kind of went out of our regular process. We need to find those things that sort of go around regular process and systematize them so that we don't have to make exceptions for everybody. Everybody is included. And the second thing I'll say is that we need to make a place at the table for all voices. We can't have an inclusive outcome unless we have an inclusive process. And as mayor, I would make a very high priority in seeking diverse representation on boards and commissions. Thanks.
Okay. Now we will move on to Ward 2, Dustin Charstrom.
Well, first off, my classroom is 100% showing the demographic changes that we're seeing. And I'm proud of the work the school district has done and would like to see the city working with the school district and working with the shareholders involved that would be communicating with the Somali community, like I did with the elders about the housing challenges they face. Reaching out and figuring out why are we having low enrollment in our rec programs from the Somali families. Those are pieces that the city can do better. We also can take a look. It's been 6 years since we've had a human rights commission within St. Peter. It has been done reactionary instead of being proactive with this process. We as a city can be better at being proactive in including all people in the community.
Thank you. Next, David Mcguire.
Because of our diverse community, the city council should have diverse membership. And all members of the council should treat all citizens with dignity and respect, and whether they agree or not agree with, it's okay to disagree, but it should be able to come together to make decisions that meet the needs of all citizens, regardless of their backgrounds. Everybody should be treated with dignity and respect by the city council members. We have to live together when we should try to get along, but we should agree to disagree sometimes.
All right, and last, Joellen Peters.
I think living here for 23 years, it has been a very safe community, And I know there's a few problems here and there, but that's normal in any community you might want to live in. I think what the city is doing on some of these fronts is right on track, but we need to keep that up. I think encouraging and supporting minorities and women to open businesses and helping them find the avenues to do that, and encourages growth in our business community. Then in our housing, there is a shortage of housing, and everything is not always in the same thing. We need a wide variety of homes and neighborhoods, so we're looking into building better housing facilities for people.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to question 3, and this came from the community. As a city council member, you will represent all of our residents, yet most of the people who talk to you about issues will be friends and family who probably already have the same ideological beliefs as your own. How do you ensure your vote on matters before the council will represent all St. Peter residents and not just those who already have your ear or those who make the most noise? We will start with Ward 2 and David Mcguire.
Yes. As a city council member should, listen to all opinions, try to never, and make sure that they understand all the issues. Like, I'm not as boisterous as some other people here, but I'm willing to listen to the citizens, and I will study each issue carefully so that I can make a good decision, so I don't make any hasty decisions, because that's, because listening is just important, probably the most important, is more important than just talking. People need to listen to the citizens and listen to what they have to tell their candidates, and well, thank you.
Next, Joellen Peters.
I think as part of the city council that you should be able to reach out and get out and visit and talk to people when you're out through town. You talk to the business owners, talk to the neighborhoods, and make yourself accessible and have your number out there or an email out there, and there is already, but being able to listen to people and try to understand where they're coming from. When I'm working in the aviation community, I'm working with 16-year-olds on the one hand up to 65-year-olds on the other, and it's vital that I understand how that person thinks and what they want to learn and how they learn. So it's quite a challenge to be able to do that with people and communicate with them on whatever age level group they're in.
Thank you. Next, Dustin Charstrom.
So regardless of the decision, the city council needs to make informed decisions on all issues. As a council member, I will seek out guidance from experts. I will seek out community leaders. I will seek out business leaders to be as informed as I possibly can on every decision I'm voting on. It is important to not have a predetermined position on an issue and to be willing to listen, inform yourself, and make a good decision in the end. That is how I started my campaign, and that is how I hope to represent everyone, and hopefully all voices will feel heard.
Thank you. And now we will move to Ward 1. Ben Renf.
So the city council is a non-partisan position. We shouldn't push our own political agendas. We are the voice of all St. Peter. If all St. Peter doesn't feel represented, doesn't feel welcomed, you're not going to serve more than one term on that council. It's important that we listen to the people that elected us. There's going to be times when a decision is going to be, well, do I go this way or do I go that way? Well, what's the best interest of St. Peter? Not me, not my family's beliefs, although my family might be a sounding board for my thoughts. But it's important that you listen to all residents, that you take the time and you actually hear what they're saying. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to Remo Alexandri.
Well, I acknowledge that St. Peter can be a little bit cliquey, and I'm definitely not part of any cliques or influenced by any specific groups of people. But I will echo what Ben said, that it's a nonpartisan position and we will be representing the whole city. Having said that, we also will be serving the interests of our own wards. I have, in this about a month or so, being a candidate, I came to learn more about the issues, and there are some slight differences between the interests of the Ward 1 and Ward 2, and I think there's nothing wrong with us representing the interests of our own ward while keeping an eye on the broader picture, and I will promise to be a voice for the whole city.
And we will move on to Roger Prados.
The council definitely is supposed to be nonpartisan, but we all have our bias. The big thing is are we open to new data, new information? Are we open to other thoughts or ideas? How rigid are we? I have my bias, but if data can be presented and it shows me a different way, then I'm open to that. My biggest complaint when I was on city council was getting engagement. I had my phone number out there, I had email out there. Getting engaged was the hardest part. It seems like until somebody is irate that we don't get engaged. So I would hope, and we'll see how being engaged can go again. But that's my biggest thing, is engagement was tough.
Thank you. And last for Ward 1, Daryl Pettis.
The United States is a representative democracy. We represent the people. We will represent the people of the city of St. Peter. Having served many years in local government, I also have found it very difficult sometimes to get public input. We built a $35 million jail and had 6 people show up for our open house. We got very little input on that. Social media I find to be very difficult to basically get a vibe from. I do not participate that much on social media. I do have email. I do read my email. Email is probably the most effective way to communicate. Show up, be present, stay active in your community, find out what people are saying, listen to what they say, and then ultimately as a city council, you need to make a decision. And when you make a decision and you vote on it, that's the decision of the council. You may not have won the vote, but that's the decision the council make, and you live with that decision and you move on that way as a council. Thank you.
And now we will move to the mayors. Do you need me to repeat the question? No? Okay. Ed Johnson first.
Okay, well, I'll start out by, I've been on the council for 3.5 3/4 or something like that. The first 2 years was really easy. Some parts last year, because of COVID, we couldn't get together as a council anymore. It was done by Zoom meetings. For a couple months there, my employment was closed down. I couldn't see any of my normal people that come in and voice their opinions on certain things that we were going to vote on. So last year was really tough getting people together. My email is out there. I've gotten quite a few emails, and the council, when we're all together, everybody brings their own opinion, and at workshops, and we usually work through things, so just gotta let us know.
Thank you. Shannon Noel.
Thanks. When I ran for city council, I said my pledge is to keep an open mind, and I have fulfilled that. I really appreciate and value feedback from other people, whether that's members of the community, other members of the council. I think that's one of the most enjoyable parts of the work for me, are really getting to hear from other people, find out what their experience is in St. Peter or with a particular issue, because I only have my experience to draw on. So I really appreciate that. I appreciate the diversity we have on the council. You know, a lot of us came on new at the same time, but we're really a diverse group of people. We have different ideas about things. We move in different circles in our community, and so we all bring that to the table and to our decisions. And lastly, I'll just say, as a council member or the mayor, we need to be prepared to lead, and sometimes that means we have to make difficult or unpopular decisions.
Thank you. And last, Chuck Zeman.
I think Ben mentioned earlier, when we sign up, we show up as on the Secretary of State's website as nonpartisan. In the 10 years that I've been at this, I've dealt with, even though we're nonpartisan, conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian. We're elected to do the work of the city. We are not elected to make overreaching political decisions. That's not our purview that we need to worry about. We are going to disagree on some things. I sure hope we do. If we all are in the same voice, I'm not sure why we are there. I think Ben said it best. Ben, I'm going to quote you twice here. If you don't do this, you're probably not going to get reelected. Well, I've been reelected 4 times, so I appreciate that point that you're making.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to question 4, and we will start with the mayors. Question 4. Housing is tight with limited room to grow. What innovative solutions might you suggest? We will start with the mayors. Shannon Noel.
Thanks. Housing has been high on our list of top discussion items over the last couple of years, high on my list of priorities. The city has tried different things like Traverse Green with mixed success. I think we really need to be looking for strategic partnerships. We can't do it ourselves. We are a city, we're not a development company. And so I think seeking strategic partnerships is probably our best tactic at this time.
Okay, thank you. Chuck Zeman, next.
Housing, as Shannon said, this has been going on for quite some time. Once again, I'm going to refer back to my 10 years of experience on the city council. We had success with a couple of subdivisions that we did in previous years. Traverse Green, yes, has not probably worked out as well as we had hoped, but we're not alone. This is a nationwide problem. The housing shortage, the affordable housing situation. I guarantee you we keep trying. It's tough to get people to come in and develop without giving a lot of incentives, and sometimes we have our hands tied a little bit with what incentives we can give. The thing that we need to do is try to get people to come in. We've approached other developers that are already doing business or building in the community, but they are also having not a very good time finding the time to do all of this stuff. So it's a nationwide problem. I wish we could do better. We keep trying, and we're going to do it. Hopefully we will succeed.
Okay, thank you. And next, Ed Johnson.
Well, the housing issue is a big deal because obviously there's not very many houses for sale in St. Peter. There's not very many apartments in St. Peter to rent. We are trying different things. Traverse Green didn't work out as well as planned, but we need affordable housing, but we also need to find hopefully some developers or something that will come in and build the middle class housing also. Because there's people that just don't want to look at a 1,200 square foot house. They want to come in and look at a 2,200 square foot house or something like that. So we need to be a little diverse on what we plan for both low income and middle income housing. And hopefully we can come up with something. It's a tough road to hoe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ward 2, Joellen Peters.
I have been doing some research on the housing and now talking to different people in the city and at the chamber and asking questions. And you know, I understand that it's that COVID and the price of materials is skyrocketed, and the regulations that the state puts on building houses and how it's increased the cost of a house astronomically. So they've made it's very difficult at this point. And what I'm hearing too constantly is you know, the low income and you know, helping with affordable housing and the middle class. I'm wondering about why aren't we talking about the upper class, where we have professionals working in St. Peter that can't live here. So what about that? And so I like to think outside of the box.
Okay, thank you. Dustin Charstrom.
Last night I was speaking with a realtor out of Mankato named John Reese, and he talked to me about the different communities. And actually, comparatively speaking, St. Peter's been doing great. If you're a homeowner in St. Peter, you're going to sell your house in 24 hours. But we have to keep thinking creatively of how do we create more housing. One specific example about communicating with all shareholders. The Traverse State Green is often referred to as a missed opportunity or something that wasn't as successful. If we had worked with the Somali community in building those houses, they're used to purchasing from municipalities or cities. And that could have been a great opportunity for us to help an underhoused portion of our population get into housing that worked for their needs. We were so close, and yet the possibility is still there for us to bridge that gap for a population that could use the help.
Thank you. Next, David Mcguire.
Yes, the housing is important, but like everybody said, past year has been kind of a more difficult year because of the pandemic and other issues, but hopefully it will be resolved. But like others have said also, yes, low-income people, but also middle-income people need places to live, and we need to get higher-income people too, because they pay the taxes they are able to afford, but they can't afford the higher property taxes. I've heard about people that they like to move here, but how they say that's the high property taxes, and they prefer to live other places that are lower.
Thank you. Moving on to Ward 1, Remo Alexandri.
I think this housing, we have to look at it as a regional issue, like in working with Kasota, Mankato. You know, I've met many people who live in Henderson, work here, or live here, work in Mankato. And I don't know, maybe I come from a big city. The driving distances are not that far. I mean, I remember the Shopko, when Shopko was being built, and it was celebrated a big success, turning St. Peter into a mini Mankato. And as council member, a male council member at the time, was quoted in the St. Peter Herald saying, well, now I don't have to buy a pack of underwear. The problem is men don't buy many packs of underwear, and that was destined to fail and did fail. Same with housing. We shouldn't have this irrational exuberance about building, building, building. We should look at the future and what kind of population we're going to be attracting in the future, high pay. Thank you.
Next, Roger Perez.
The mayoral candidates said it really well whenever they talked about strategic partners and some of the other items. We'll definitely have to keep up with that. I know that Traverse Green has been doing that. Also, part of Traverse Green is slated for higher end housing. We just haven't had any developers that have wanted to come in and develop. We've reviewed fees in the past when I've been on council. We were slightly higher than average, but not too out of whack. It's just we don't have developers that are wanting to come and build here. Developers don't want to come in and build a house for $175,000 or $200,000 for affordable housing because the profit margins aren't in it for them. So that's why we've tried with the strategic partners with Traverse Green, and we see where that's at now. It's going to be a challenge. It's a nationwide challenge, as that's been said. And it's just something we'll have to keep on pursuing.
Thank you. Daryl Pettis.
I'm going to take a little bit different slant at this one. One of the things that hasn't been talked about here that city councils do have some control over zoning, changing some of your zoning requirements. City of Minneapolis did this a couple of years ago, allowing triplexes into areas that are zoned for single-family homes. It was maybe not real popular, but it was a move to try to densify some of the areas, allow additional population into these areas. Look at our zoning. What does our zoning say? What's allowed and what's not allowed? Issue with the $350,000 house that we're short of in St. Peter is, as public policy, does the public subsidize housing for $300,000 to $400,000 homes? That's a really difficult issue to talk about. It's a really difficult issue to subsidize. Those are some of the challenges that we have and some of the opportunities that we have to work on. Thank you.
And next, Ben Renf.
I agree with everybody. It definitely plagues all communities. We ran into the same issue when we moved to town. We put bids in on 10 homes, and they were just gone like that. Once we're able to find somebody, I take a quote from a movie, if you build it, they will come. If we build the houses that people want in St. Peter, they will buy the houses in St. Peter. St. Peter only has so much footprint, but there's land that can be acquired to expand the city of St. Peter. If we need to do some type of subsidies or try and figure out subsidies so we have an equitable solution for housing in St. Peter, we should do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to question 5. And question 5 is, in the coming year, the council must redraw the boundaries of our wards and precincts based on the 2020 census. What factors do you consider in completing this task, and what role, if any, do you see for the public? And we will start with Ward 1, Roger Perez.
You know, to me, redrawing the boundaries should be just a simple thing of making sure that the registered voters are equal in the areas. To me, it doesn't need to be a big political thing. We don't need to do like they do at the state level and national level with all these, crazy processes. So to me, it's about equal voters in the areas, so that way everybody has the same amount of votes for the same representation. The citizens, with something like this, input should always be done. So I think a few open houses would be nice to get some input. Maybe there's some other ideas. But to me, it still boils down to the number of votes to equal the same representation across the city.
Thank you. Daryl Pettis.
I actually redrew the commissioner districts for LeSueur County back in 2011, 2012 for that census, so I'm very familiar with this. There are requirements as far as plus and minuses, how many people to basically equalize the districts out, one person, one vote. I am a data person. I like working with data. I'm an engineer. Put the data out there. let people be creative. Let them play with the data. They'll come up with some solutions you've never ever thought of and dreamed of. But ultimately, it will be the determination of the council and the mayor and the city working together to basically draw the districts. But let the people look at it. You have to balance your districts out. Let them take a couple shots at it and see what they come up with. Thank you.
Ben Renf?
You know, the biggest thing we should look at is population. That's it. There's no this certain demographic in this area to vote for these people in this ward, and this certain demographic of these people to vote for these people in this ward. It should be population, that's it. I agree that we should have some resident input. At the end of the day, it's got to make sense, but that's all that should be taken into consideration. No funny business.
Next, Remo Alexandri.
I would echo comments made by my co-panelists here. I don't know, maybe population also. I see St. Peter from my perspective, the north side that is kind of nested within the farmland, and the southern part, which is the Ward 2, it's kind of riverside quality to it, and more cosmopolitan, more mixed use kind of character, has a mixed use character to it, and also the colleges in Ward 2. So if there was a need, I would envision expanding the southern boundaries of the Ward 2 more towards Broadway and beyond maybe. But otherwise it would be a simple process, but I definitely think we should ask our community and seek their input in the process.
Okay, thank you. Next, we will move to the mayors. Chuck Zeman.
The 10 years, every 10 years with the census comes out, we do this. 10 years ago, I remember Broadway was pretty much the boundary. It shifted a little bit to the south, where the North Ward now consumes a little bit of that south of Broadway partition. To me, this is really a non-issue. We're not a big community. You know, we're 12,066 people now, but we are not a big community. We are not divided by politics as far as our boundaries concerned within the wards that occupy the city. The adjustments that are made are strictly off of population, so there's an equal amount of votes on the north and south ward. It's as simple as that. Doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. And like I say, it's different when you're redistricting whole congressional districts, but that is not the case in this situation. Thank you.
Next, Ed Johnson.
Well, in my opinion on this, you know, the bottom line, it's based on population, but we're still basically going to be electing the same amount of people to the council, and we're going to have one mayor and so forth. So the common thing is we just got to work together, and if a line shifts one block one way or one block the other way on population, it's not going to make a real lot of difference. Thank you.
Shannon Noel.
Thanks. The two words I wrote down were simple and data-driven. I agree that this should be a simple process, not a lot to it, but we do need to educate the public, provide opportunities for public feedback, just the simple logistics of knowing people being educated so they know where to go vote if their ward has changed. And so there needs to be public feedback, public education involved, but should be simple, data-driven.
And moving to Ward 2, Dustin Charstrom.
You know, I get asked a lot when you're going to use mapping skills in real life as a geography teacher. It's a really great example, but it's simple numbers. In a population, a town the size of St. Peter, you're looking at having an equal number of votes in the north and an equal number of votes in the south. And if that means that the line moves a block one way, that's what it means. I agree with everyone that this should be a really simple conversation and maybe a really good geography project for next school year.
Okay, and next, David Mcguire.
I'll provide some of my knowledge as a historian that when St. Peter was incorporated as a city in 1873, the two wards were established with Grace Street as the dividing line between the two wards. Yeah, the Broadway divides the street, north streets and the south street, but Gray Street divides the two wards, and that's, since 1873, that's been the same. Ward 1, Ward 2, or North Ward, South Ward. I think we've always had 3 council members on each ward, so it's lasted this long, and the St. Peter has grown quite a bit since 1873, and it'll continue to grow, but I don't think it'll ever be a big city. And everybody said that's why they moved here, because they like living in a small town, and if they wanted to live in a big city, they'd move to a big city. So that's my take on it.
Okay. And last, Joellen Peters.
I agree pretty much with everybody. It's not really my, simply said that it should be half registered voters in each ward, so that it's kind of an even split of how many people are voting for each one of these council members. So it's just, I agree, it's a simple thing, and half works out.
Okay, and question number 6. Climate change is a major concern for many citizens. What efforts should the city take to decrease carbon footprint? And we will start with Ward 2, David Mcguire.
Yes, I agree with Bob. I am into recycling. I agree that we should try to recycle more, and we try to use less, so that we don't fill up our landfills and end up filling up the waterways and with trash, and we begin with ourselves by recycling and making sure that we are using using more recyclable material. Yeah.
Are you done?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. Joellen Peters.
I think the city is already making great strides in the carbon footprint with the recycling and cleanliness and that in the community. I was this summer driving through the neighborhoods with my daughter-in-law, and her comment was how nice the streets were, how the lawns were all groomed and the houses were nice. And I think that's by and far as the efforts of the city in making our neighborhoods good and nice, and in that vein, that also works along with carbon footprint and keeping the community clean.
Thank you. Dustin Charstrom.
Well, specifically looking at the City Council's areas of vital importance, always improving on environmental sustainability is right on that list. As a City Council, we can help incentivize renewable energy, whether that be in solar energy, whether that be continuing to promote electric cars, whether that having rebates for energy efficient windows, energy efficient appliances, and making it so people in the city of St. Peter can directly see the benefit not only for the environment on a larger scale, but incentivize it so they can see it for their household in their daily lives.
Thank you. Moving on to Ward 1, Daryl Pettis.
City of St. Peter is a member of SIMPA, which is the Southern Minnesota Power. They do a lot of green initiatives, both wind and solar. I believe as our power supplier, that is probably one of the biggest things we can do is work through them and have them continue doing some of their bio. I know they have some bio plants also. Once again, into zoning, rooftop solar units. People actually can produce enough solar off their shingles or their roofs now to power their homes. Talking about battery technology, use of batteries in homes that can store power. Seems buzzing here. Other green initiatives like that I would also support, and also think that the council does support. They do rebate programs for energy efficient appliances and things like that. So some of those efforts, small efforts, can add up to big savings in the long run. Thank you.
Okay. Ben Renf?
Well, gosh, I don't like sounding like a broken record, but there's a lot that I agree with. We definitely could do more solar. I know that there's some incentivization for rebates. We should probably do a lot more advertising to inform the homeowners of what rebates are available when they buy things as simple as light bulbs. The refrigerator took a dump and they got a new refrigerator. Well, hey, this is Energy Star rated and I qualify for a rebate. Water heater, air conditioners, just getting that information out to folks so that way they're informed. If they're not educated that there's programs out there where they can get $25 back on the $800 water heater that they just bought, that's something. They're not informed, so they're not getting that. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Remo Alexandri?
I pretty much agree with Ben. Education plays a big role because we are such a small city, we can really have a big impact. As in former forums, when this question has come up, the issue is some of our providers are coal-burning providers, but I think we should partner up with other cities and demand from our providers to provide a cleaner source of energy. I think there's a similarity between the housing too. It's a regional, it's maybe state level, even federal level questions. At the small city level, we can do what Ben suggested, educate people about what programs are available. I think that's the best we can do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Roger Pettis?
Whenever I was on council, we had a program. There was a company that came in and they evaluated all of our city buildings, showed us where we could save money and also reduce carbon footprint by using less energy, aka saving money. And so we put those improvements in. We've also partnered with SIMPA, which is it's a co-op. So the cities do get together and they do talk with SIMPA. We're represented on the board, last I knew. So that way we can continue to push for renewables. The other thing is I know we've put charging stations in. We have them near downtown. That helps with obviously our electric vehicles. I think one of the biggest things we can do is to make sure that people can put solar on their house easier, but at the same time we have to make sure that our infrastructure in the city is paid for because we want to make sure we keep reliable power throughout the whole city. So that's that balance that needs to occur.
Okay, thank you. And now we will move to the mayors, starting with Ed Johnson.
Well, we have developed quite a few programs. You know, we got the car chargers in town and stuff like that. The biggest thing is that we are with SIMPA, and I'm not sure the percentage, but I know a certain percentage of the power we buy does come from the solar fields that you see. There's some east of St. Peter, and there's some on the way to Mankato. I'm not exactly sure if them are the ones we get our power from. Solar is good. I don't necessarily want it in my backyard. So if we do put any solar in the St. Peter, we got to make sure that it's kind of tucked away in a place that not everybody has to look at it. Thank you.
Okay. Shannon Noel?
I think there's a lot that I had written down that's already been mentioned. The EV charging stations, which I received tremendous positive feedback from residents in St. Peter. People are really excited about that. Our relationship with SIMPA, and I think their move toward renewables, it has been important. And there's just so much happening in the city to educate people about things like rebates, which other folks have mentioned is super important. A few things that I'm interested in regarding sustainability would be things like supporting native plants, pollinator gardens, rain gardens that would help keep our water cleaner. We're right on the Minnesota River Valley or on the Minnesota River, and that we have a lot of obligations as a city to keep that clean by, and so I think there are a lot of innovative things that we can do that would be low cost, big impact, and the community would really get excited about.
Thank you. And Chuck Zeman.
I won't repeat, I've written down what Shannon had just finished with the pollinator gardens and that type of thing. We have the scenic luxury of living on the river, but we have burdens that are required of us in order to take care of what we discharge into the river. 2019 and 2020, we contracted with a company called Amoresco, and we did a $2.65 million project for changing over the lights and street lights and a lot of things in our city buildings to make them more efficient. That program paid for itself. We offer a solar panel program where people can actually buy a part of a solar panel or a whole solar panel and get credit off of their utility bill. The other thing, I agree with solar, it's fine. What I don't agree with is where we get the solar panel. 90% of the solar panels that are built in the world are built in China, and they are the biggest violator of human rights that exist. So that is the problem that I have. Find them here, find them wherever we can. Let's just not keep getting them from China.
Okay, thank you. This concludes our question and answer period. So now we're going to start with the 1 minute of closing remarks. And we will start with the mayors. Shannon Noel.
Wow. Thanks again to the League of Women Voters for all the work you do. And to the other candidates, I appreciated your time and hearing from all of you tonight. I'd like to close by talking again about my priorities, which are affordable housing solutions, building on the strength of our diverse community, and environmental sustainability. There will be a second wave of new leadership on the council in November. I remain committed to working with my colleagues on the council, and I will work hard to be a voice for all members of our community. Thank you, and I would be honored to earn your vote.
Thank you. Chuck Zeman.
Yes, thanks again to the League and to the Herald and to the Chamber. I want to also thank my wife Woody for her continued support and for kind of reminding me that maybe some days aren't so good, but the people that know me know what I stand for, know what I'm capable of, know what I've done. 10 years ago, when I first started campaigning, or I was about 3/4 the way done campaigning, going door to door in the South Ward, on 3rd Street, South 3rd Street, I ran into a lady that was doing some outside fall cleanup work. And we were talking about things in St. Peter, life in St. Peter, utility rates, the usual thing. And she asked me, "What do you think about the pay?" And I said, "What are you referring to?" And she said, "Well, you get paid for doing this." And I said, "You know what? Evidently, I must be doing this for the right reason, because I had no idea you got paid to be on the city council." So those people that are here tonight, you do get paid. So in case you want to put that on your budget schedule. Last thing, please remember to vote on November 2nd, and please remember to vote, and please vote for the 0.5% sales tax. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ed Johnson.
Again, I'd like to thank everybody that's here tonight and helped with the forum. Also like to thank the TV audience, because this will eventually be on TV. I would just like to say that I'm very dedicated to the city of St. Peter. I've been on the council, I've been on fire departments, I've taught numerous kids fire safety through the fire department. I love this community, and I will do everything I can to keep it the outstanding community that it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I would have certainly appreciate your vote.
Ward 2, Joellen Peters.
Okay, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, and again, and I was just thinking I would like to, I started in St. Peter with the Emergency Management Office years and years ago when we first got here. I would like to finish and get on the council here because I've enjoyed serving this community, and my husband has served this community, and I think that my skills that I have gotten over the years in the aviation industry require a lot of innovative thinking, problem solving, and working with a very wide range of people. So I would like to continue to serve St. Peter, and it would be an honor to earn your trust and your vote.
Thank you. Dustin Charstrom.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for sitting through all of this. I would like to use my professional and academic background in economic reasoning, civic involvement, and accountable government to continue to build a vibrant St. Peter while ensuring sustainable and fiscal responsibility. I spent much of my adult life in education working on including all children in my classroom. I would like to take that attitude and use it to represent the City Council. I'm going to ask for your vote November 5th. I also am going to ask you to vote for the sales tax. I also would like you to vote to support our school district. It is a vital part of our community, and if we truly want our community to continue to grow and thrive, we have to do that in partnership with the school district. Thank you, and please vote November 2nd.
David Mcguire.
Yes, again, I want to thank everybody involved that put this together, the League of Women Voters, the Chamber of Commerce, and the St. Peter Herald. And I would appreciate your votes. I'm not, like I said, I'm not doing this for the pay. I'm doing this to be of service to the community. And I'm not as a great talker, but I am a good listener. I promise to listen to every citizen that comes. That I will listen to the opinions of the other council members, and I will promise to be of good service to their community, and I again thank you, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. Now we move to Ward 1, Daryl Pettis.
Once again, also thank you for coming tonight. I would like to just point out a couple things that we really didn't talk about tonight, really the reason why the city exists. The city exists to provide services to its people. Those services are police, fire, streets, water, sewer, storm sewer. The real, probably what you would say, the boring things that the city has to do, but that's why the city exists. It exists to provide these services. I feel I have a unique background, being a licensed professional engineer, working for a consulting firm, working in the public for 30 years, dealing with people, dealing with large budgets, dealing with large projects and small projects. The city was incorporated to provide these services, to provide this for its people. I am willing to do this job. I would like to do this job. I'd appreciate your vote. And also please vote for the sales tax. And also please vote for the members of the school board up for election at the same time that we are. Thank you.
Next, Ben Renf.
Well, I want to thank you guys for coming, sticking this out. I started off, I was really nervous, but you guys were a great audience. Thank you. I want to ensure you that a vote for me is a non-partisan vote, or vote for a voice for all of St. Peter. I will promise to be open-minded. I will promise to continue to focus on housing, lending, and all of the other issues that we talked about tonight. I got into this for the right reason, continue to be on the Planning and Zoning Commission, continue to promote St. Peter as the best town to live, work, and do business, and I thank you. You can find me on Facebook, Ben Renf for City Council. Thank you.
Okay. Next, Remo Alexandri.
Thank you. I'm running because I believe the city is run really well. And it has been run well for a long time. So I want to thank the leadership that currently runs the city and the leadership before them. It is a very nice city. So if I didn't believe I would bring something to the table to complement the great leadership and administrative skills, I wouldn't have run. So I have worked as an analyst. I've been the communication director of a large nonprofit organization in California. And I worked with government, state, local, law enforcement, intelligence agency. So I understand, I have developed good analytical skills that I think our city, I can bring to the table. And also, it will look good. You know, when you have immigrant on the board of a small city, it looks good. The corporate America, the state, the federal government will take that into notice.
And last, Roger Pettis.
I moved to St. Peter 13 years ago. I was actually dreading moving here, small town, and I was used to large metro cities. Fell in love. I really like the community. The people here are great. I believe our leadership at the city has been really good as well. Like everybody else, I have my criticisms, of course. I have my own thoughts. I promise, though, that I won't just have my own thoughts. I'll listen to people. I'll take the data into consideration on all issues, as I did previously, and I'll continue to do that. I hope to earn your vote, and thank you again for putting on this event.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
This concludes our forum for this evening. I'd like to thank the candidates for sharing their thoughts on the issues. If we ran out of time before we could ask your question, please contact the candidates directly. I hope they will stick around maybe for a few minutes tonight. This forum will be aired on St. Peter Public Access TV and on the city's YouTube channel. Check your schedule for times. The League and tonight's partners invite you to a candidate forum for school board on Thursday, September 23rd, 7 p.m., here at the Performing Arts Center in the high school. I would like to thank our partners, the St. Peter Herald and the St. Peter Chamber of Commerce, my worthy assistant, our timers, worthy, and other worthy volunteers, our filming crew, and of course, our candidates, and you, the public. And last but not least, early voting begins this Friday, September 17th, with Election Day, Tuesday, November 2nd. You can vote absentee in person or by mail. If you are not registered to vote, you must be so by October 15th or else on the election day at your polling place. Find election information at the Secretary of State website, www.capital M, capital V, small, OTES, minvotes.org. Thank you very much.